Hey, I'm gonna be camping here too.
You are? One night?
Yeah, just one night. Picked up my race number. I'm just gonna go ahead and get kitted up and get ready to ride. They're about to do the short track race, so I'll probably record a little bit of that.
But here we go, guys and gals. Pros are off and on the move. Short track. Amateurs coming up next. There we go. Mass pandemonium here at the start line of day one of the Austin Rattler. Right now we got short track action going on here, y'all. It is going to be...
Frank is finally here. We're going to head out for a ride now.
Leave me here, you were never good enough. Won't change a thing now, there was never trust. Don't you say a word, cause I've heard it all. You were just a pain when you felt it all. Oh. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. Ooh, baby, there ain't no one like you. You chose to keep the truth inside. Ooh, baby, keep my all to you. All you did was tell me lies. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. Once you leave me, it's over. No turning back, not today. Don't you come running back now. I'm not a home for the shame. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. Ooh, baby, there ain't no one like you. You chose to keep the truth inside. Ooh, baby, keep my all to you. All you did was tell me lies. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. I won't miss this love, no. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. The thrill is gone.
All right, we just finished our pre-ride, and now it's time to put the tent up. All right, guys, that basically does it for me for today. The trail's pretty wet. There's a lot of mud. There's a couple creek crossings. It's gonna be really interesting tomorrow.
Tracks and production.
To be in a less than happy place. We're gonna walk over here and see if her morale has improved. Come on, Christy. Things don't seem to have improved.
Come on, man. Great work, guys and gals. Fantastic work.
I walked back up to make sure Chrissy hadn't flatted or DNF'd somehow and ended up back at the car. She's not here. The announcer has said that this is the largest field of DNF they've ever had at this race. Conditions are terrible. Nobody's coming in with anything positive to say. Come on, Chrissy! Finish it up! Woo! Look at that smile! Yeah! She finished on 1 year, she said.
At mile 50, I decided to single speed. Cause, you know, why not? Why not?
This wasn't badass enough.
Fuck this place. All right, so today is Monday. It's 2 days after the race, and I'm just gonna give you a little bit of recap of actually what went down. It rained a lot in Texas before we got there, so the trail was very, very muddy. There was actually sections of the trail that we couldn't even ride through. A lot of people were kind of going around the mud puddles when they could. Obviously, we were just making them wider. Now, it wasn't easy to push and walk through these puddles. It was taking a lot of energy when you could ride through them and when you had to get off and you had to push your bike. It was very, very tiring. And these sections of the trail that were this wet were the extremely fast sections where you're out in an open field and it's just a single track path. We should have been able to just fly through those sections, and they were bogging us down big time. The first lap, I didn't notice it till probably halfway through that I lost my easiest gear in the rear. Now, my mountain bike is a one by. Knew over 60 miles I would probably want that for some of the climbs so I could easily spin up them, but I knew I could make them up them without it, so I wasn't too considerably worried at this time. I started the second lap with a mindset of I'm gonna try to make up time. So I started pushing all the sections that I knew were dry, because I wanted to try to make up as much time in those sections that I could. When I came through the really muddy sections the second time, I went right down the middle where the trail should be because so many people went out on the sides that the sides just had these huge deep mud ruts. So that worked pretty well for a few of them, but there is this one section of trail that was so long and so muddy. I tried to ride a little bit of it and I just had to push the rest. I really started to feel fatigue in my calves that I don't normally feel, and I know it was from getting off the bike and having to push. About halfway through, I started to have a lot of problems with my shifting. I would get in a gear and my bike just couldn't make a decision about what gear it would want to be in. So I'd put it in a gear and it would move to another gear and then it would move back, and it just did this over and over. So I started to make adjustments while I was riding. This was causing me to slow down majorly. I was able to make enough adjustments to get it back to where it was working for the most part, but the easiest gear wasn't working. This happened a couple times during the second lap, and so it definitely caused me to lose time. So when I transitioned between my second and my third lap, I was really starting to feel fatigue, mostly from riding through the mud and having to push. All that stuff was really starting to wear on me at this point. And I already knew with the mechanical issues that I was having that the third lap was going to be really hard. And almost immediately, I started to feel like I was bunking. So I started to take goos, and I was so happy that I had my s'mores goo in my pocket still because that is my absolute favorite. And getting that one at that time, it made me feel so much better. And again, the shifting problem started immediately, but I was able to work through it again as best as I could. And then I got to the mud sections, and this time the mud sections, there was no good line. I mean, so many people had gone through them at this point that it was just a disaster. So I just did what I could. Halfway through my third lap, my shifting, all hell just broke loose. I actually got off the bike and made some adjustments, and it started to kind of work again, but after a mile or two, it just blew up again. And this time when I got off the bike to check it, I noticed that my shift cable was literally holding on by a single strand. The cable actually broke in the front of the frame. My bike has internal cable housing. Where that went into my frame, it's almost like it kind of tweaked it a little bit, and it actually caused the housing to break and the cable inside to break. I don't know how that happened. That's just, it's so weird to me. So when I saw this, I knew, yeah, my shifting game was done. It was over. At this point, I was thinking I had 10 miles left to go, and it was time to DNF, is what I figured. I was so far out in the trail that there was actually nowhere that I could go to actually DNF. So I knew I was gonna have to ride for a couple miles before I could even get to that point where I could quit. I went ahead and I rode on for a couple miles till I got to an aid station. I thought about it. I've never DNF'd in a race before. I can still turn the pedals. The bike's still moving. It's not moving very fast, but at this point, I've got nothing to lose. I did the last 10 miles with one gear. So at the end of the race, a lot of people were saying that this was the hardest race that they've ever done. I love to look at data, so I looked at the TSS score, which is your training stress score. Your TSS is given to your ride either based on heart rate or power, however you train. I had a couple of rides I'd done in mind that I knew were really hard, and I wouldn't compare the TSS from those rides to this ride. Ultimately, I found out that there has been one ride ever that I've done that was harder than the Austin Rattler 100K, and that was when I did my Knighthood of Sufferlandria. So if you're not familiar with that, there's these videos called the Sufferfest. They have a thing called the Knighthood of Sufferlandria where you do 10 Sufferfest videos back to back, and I did that a few years ago. It was actually 10.5 hours of riding on the trainer. That ride was only slightly harder than the Austin Rattler. Unfortunately, I did not increase my corral position at all due to my mechanical. So now I've got to make a decision of what do I do now? Do I just stay in the very back at Leadville, or do I try to go to another event? Unfortunately, Frankie DNF'd on his second lap. There was a downhill section. He actually went over the handlebars. He's fine, he's okay, just a little bit sore, but he had the DNF. Dustin, he finished 10th in his age group. He pushed really hard. I mean, he got a really good time. They didn't give out as many Leadville tokens as they did, so he did not qualify to get into Leadville. So really, that's basically it for the trip. I want to feel like it was almost a wasted trip because I didn't go do what I was going there to do. So anyways, that's the race recap. I'm really proud of myself for finishing the race. I'm really glad that I did not DNF. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys like this type of video. I know it sucks not having footage from the race on the bike. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to get my GoPro mounted with the number plate on the front of my bike. So stay tuned. There'll definitely be more race footage in the upcoming videos. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Yes! Who do you belong to? I just stole you.
He belongs over here.
Ow! You're so mean! Come back!